Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have some disturbing new details to share about the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, I'm sure you guys are all aware by now, he was a prolific child predator, probably the most notorious pedophile on the planet at this point. And he allegedly trafficked his young victims to the wealthy, to the well-connected. He was given a complete pass over and over again, not just once, but many, many times, because people speculate, it was because of his ties to these elites throughout the entire world. He had evidence supposedly against them from their sick deeds that they did in his homes and on his island. And then, of course, he was conveniently found dead in his cell after he was finally arrested, which they deem a suicide. I'm still not buying it, though. So a judge just recently released transcripts from a 2006 grand jury proceeding. I'm going to warn you guys up front, prepare to be pissed. Prepare to be screaming at your screen, to be throwing things. This information is beyond infuriating. So here's what went down. There was a girl that they called in to testify before this grand jury. She endured abuse at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein for years, starting at the age of 14. And the prosecutor and the jury basically treated her like she was the criminal. So the prosecutor interrupts her as she's giving this testimony and asks her, "What kind of bra and underwear were you wearing when you went to Epstein's Florida estate?" Then later during her testimony, the prosecutor mentioned that the girl, quote, had a problem with drugs. Yeah, I mean, it's not like Epstein or any pedophile for that matter. They're not out targeting healthy, emotionally stable girls with great supportive families. Unfreaking believable. So anyway, the prosecutor goes on to press the girl about how she changed her story. And the girl explained to her, I was afraid to share certain details with the police. And then the prosecutor read some of her statements out loud to the jury that this girl had made on MySpace about apparently smoking weed, about drinking, about shoplifting. And she mentioned that the girl had 4 piercings. What in hell? What the hell does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with a grown-ass man violating a child? Seriously? So the grand jury then follows the prosecutor's lead and they completely blame the victim. So one jury asked her, quote, "Do you have any idea deep down inside of you that what you're doing is wrong?" Seriously? And then another one asked her, quote, "Have you set the goals to not do it anymore? And you're well aware what you're doing to your own reputation?" I'm serious, you guys. This is what these jurors were saying to this poor girl. And the prosecutor's co-counsel then stepped in and asked the victim, quote, "You're aware that you committed a crime?" She's the victim here. And so she was, what it sounds like, very respectful and didn't lose her shit as I would have. She answered yes to all of these questions. And then when one of the jurors asked her if she ever realized that Epstein could have, quote, hacked you up, the girl started to answer that question. And she started to say, yeah, I mean, I didn't before, but now I think about it a lot. Another juror interrupted her and said, quote, "You should give it a little further thought." Are you freaking kidding me? Who the hell are these people? They have clearly never been targeted and groomed by a predator. And they obviously know no one else who has either. or maybe not anyone who trusts them enough to open up and tell them their story and their experience. I mean, given their comments, I don't blame their friends and their family members, because these are some judgmental pieces of shit who blame the victim, a child. So the Palm Beach Post mentioned how the Palm Beach County State Attorney, which at that time it was a man named Barry Krischer, I think is how you say it, Krischer, he basically sabotaged the case. His office never even bothered to speak with any of Epstein's victims. And when Epstein's attorneys got involved, the prosecutors just stopped speaking with the local police. They just cut off all communication. And then the Post also pointed out Krischer's office could have directly charged Epstein. He could have just said, I don't need anybody else's input. I'm going ahead with charges. We have all of these victims on the record. Instead, he said, oh no, we're going to leave it up to a grand jury. We're going to put it before a grand jury. So they knew about all of this for like 2 years before anything even happened. And the Post said the way they handled this by taking it to a grand jury rather than just pressing charges themselves, that was the first time that Palm Beach County had ever in their history handled a case like this in that way. Now, Krischer, of course, didn't want to reply. The Guardian reached out to him for comment, and no, he was too chicken shit to answer any questions. So I hope he rots in hell. I seriously do. I hope he burns and rots in hell for what he allowed to happen to these girls and to other girls that came after them. Because as we all know, the grand jury just went on to indict Epstein on one single count of solicitation of prostitution. These were children. So instead of holding him accountable for the more than 24 victims that they located, child victims, they just got him on one count of prostitution. And then when the feds stepped in, under the direction of Alex Acosta, by the way, who ended up being Trump's labor secretary, he gave Epstein another pass. He gave him another sweetheart deal. They gave him a pass on a 60-count indictment. So he was indicted on 60 different counts. They allowed Epstein to plead down to only 2 counts of prostitution, not child abuse, not child sex trafficking, prostitution of children. And then for his plea, he got 18 months. And that even was a joke because he was on a daily work release. So he literally could leave first thing in the morning, didn't have to be there until lockup that night because, he had to go to work. What was he did again for a living? Traffic children? Are you kidding? This is a complete and utter joke. It is such a violation. Every single one of these people, whether attorneys, district attorneys, court people, police, everyone should be held accountable for this. They took oaths to uphold the law, to protect the innocent, and they did nothing. They let this guy skate. And I would love to know why. I would love to know, were your families threatened? Did they have something on you? Because meanwhile, all of these girls, all these victims, they've served life sentences. They've had to deal with the pain and the trauma their entire lives. And really, has much changed since this grand jury? Really? I mean, people still, to this day, not all, it has changed a little bit, but there are still people out there who blame the victims for what these sick, demented child predators do, as if there's ever a justification as an adult to touch in any way a child. If there is a heaven and hell, Epstein is roasting on a spit right now. Let's just hope. And let's hope a lot of these other people join him. That's where they belong. Anyway, guys, if I hear any more, I will let you know. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Love you all. Take care.